I'm calling the Wednesday, June 6th, 2025 Economic Development Commission meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. Members of the public may attend in person, or they may also be watching this meeting online at burnsvillemn.gov/meetings or view us on Comcast Channel 6 or 859. The public can also join us on Zoom by going to zoom.us/join. More information is available on our meetings webpage and in the agenda for this meeting. Now we'll move on to the agenda. The first item on that agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Do any commissioners have any changes to the agenda? Staff, do you have any changes to the agenda?
No changes from staff.
May I have a motion for adopting the agenda?
I motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved and is it seconded?
Yes, second.
There we go. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for June 4th, 2025's meeting. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. This passes. Moving on to the approval of our previous meeting's minutes. The May 14th, 2025 Economic Development Commission meetings. Commission members, are there any changes to the minutes?
It does seem like there's some things missing from it, and I know it said draft that was sent to us, so I don't know if there's a more final version of the minutes available.
The minutes are intended to be a general summary and not a full transcription of the meeting.
Okay.
So if there was something specific that you felt was missing or you wanted annotated in the minutes, we can certainly address that.
I just know that there were some things missing. So.
Okay.
Were there elements of the conversation that you find it would be important to add to the minutes?
I don't know.
Not at the moment. Staff, is it all
Possibly.
right for us to not approve the minutes and approve that on the next time? If we're able to give it a little more consideration to make sure they reflect our memories of the meeting?
Certainly.
That's appropriate. Would that be a motion to postpone? Table. Table.
Continue to the next meeting.
So moved.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue the approval of the minutes to a future meeting so that we have a little more time to review and make sure no key elements were omitted. All in favor of that? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This passes. Okay. We are going to move on to item number 3. This is the review of sustainability programs. It will be presented by Bridget Rafsack. She is the sustainability coordinator.
Wonderful. Well, hello. Good evening. Can you all hear me okay? Yes. Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm excited to be here. I haven't been in front of the EDC before, so it's exciting to meet you all. As you said, my name is Bridget Ratzak, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Burnsville. And I did prepare some slides, but please feel free to interrupt me with questions or thoughts if you have them as I go throughout. And tonight I'm presenting with the LAHA topic as well, just because we've been trying to integrate energy and energy efficiency into LAHA with that, and so we thought tonight would be a good time to update the Commission as well on that progress. And I know this group, I heard there's some newer folks as well, so I'll go into a little bit more detail, but I know this group's worked on the home loan programs prior to this and also Home Energy Squad program. So you may know some of the context around this, but again, please feel free to stop me and slow me down if you'd like. All right, so just a quick agenda. Basically, I just want to provide a general update on our sustainability programs and our energy resources. I'm hoping you may have heard of some of them through some of our communications, or maybe I've talked to you at Party on the Plaza before. That would be great. I'll be there tomorrow night in case you want to say hi. But just to share some progress on where we're at and where we're going and how we're partnering with this city staff team here tonight too. So a little context, this is kind of a busy slide, but it's really pretty. We have been working a lot on sustainability in the city of Burnsville. I've been here almost 2 years now, and so this goes well before my time. The city council has adopted sustainability as a strategic priority, so it's one of our 6 strategic priorities. We adopted our first formal plan. It was actually the first in the state in 2009, so that's pretty cool to hear that we were the first in the state to do that. And this, the representation on this slide is actually our 2020 update, where we talked more about the whole community and what our sustainability goals are. So that's why there are so many different categories, because there are really a lot of topics that sustainability can touch on. And tonight I'll talk a bit more about energy, because since this plan was adopted in 2020, we were approached by our utility company, one of our utility companies, so we have 4 across the city, Excel Energy, and they do a specific program with energy efficiency and energy. So we partner with them because they've given us some additional staff through that process and some additional help. I am a team of 1, so I appreciate that. And so we adopted that plan in, just here's our quick snapshot timeline. We adopted that plan in June 2024. And prior to that, we had done a lot of engagement. I think this commission got a quick presentation on it 2 years ago. I see a nod, so that's good. That was before my time, but learned a little bit about it. Everybody was given the opportunity to inform the plan. We had a formal team, the Energy Action Team, that we're still working with today, that did 4 different workshops to put this plan together. We hosted 2 multilingual open houses, one in Spanish and one in Somali, and also gathered a lot of input through our community survey and all the events that you would have seen me at as well. So this plan was really community driven and community led, and so we're sort of in the we are in the implementation stage now through the end of 2025.
Bridget, I have a question.
Yeah.
Who is on the Energy Action Team?
So it was an assortment of folks. I think there was an invite extended to this commission. I don't think anyone was actually able to participate. But we had a lot of residents actually from kind of all parts of Burnsville, which was great. We had some that had Excel Energy, some that had Dakota Electric, and then some that had Minnesota Valley, which are 3 electric utilities. So that was actually really nice for a holistic picture of the city. And then I think it ended up mostly being residents. I believe we had 1 Parks and Natural Resource Commissioner also that was involved for one of the meetings, and I think that was the meeting right before I started the job. So I didn't get to see them at that meeting. But we've also reported back to the Parks and Rec Commission a couple of times on the plan, and then annually I go back, typically in the fall, and update them as well. So
Great, thank you.
good smattering, yeah. And then online, we had lots of folks on our online survey too.
Perfect,
Thanks for the question. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Great. So I think that's all I wanted to say on that slide. So this is our plan in a nutshell. I know I attached it to your information, your packet for this evening, and perhaps you didn't read it because it's quite long. So here's it in a snapshot. We set a rather bold, I think, vision. So we are striving to make energy use cleaner and more efficient by engaging the community in effective energy actions. This plan will help make Burnsville a better place to live and preserve our resources for future generations. So the vision is meant to be big, bold, broad. And within that, we put together 5 different focus areas that you can see here: reducing energy burden, residential energy efficiency, business energy efficiency, multifamily buildings, and renewable energy. And there are basically goals and strategies under each of these that get really specific and have, granular, detailed numbers behind them and things like that. But basically they capture everybody across the city. And in my head, I think of the 3 segments: homeowners and renters, businesses, and multifamily properties as our main targets that we want to reach out to in the different areas. So to get this started, one of the biggest lifts, I would say, is actually getting all this information collected in one place. Given that we do have 3 electric utilities and then CenterPoint serves the city for natural gas, there's a lot of information because I'm guessing, all of you might have different utility providers too that I'm looking at tonight. So if I had a conversation with each of you, it might look a little different because you have different utility providers. So the first thing we did was put together a website. This is a little cute QR code you can use to go to it. But essentially we labeled it Save Energy and Money. hopefully that resonates with everybody. And in our kickoff year, we actually had the second highest for a GIS hub site, which is a super specific term, but we did very good. I believe actually development had the highest views in 2024. We had the second highest views. So that seemed like a big success for only having this website launched for about 6 months.
Let me guess, the most views were what's happening at the mall.
Yeah, I don't know that specific on the
It
development.
was the development map as a whole.
Yeah.
Probably seeking that information.
Yes. Or the new properties I see popping up too all over. So this is a snapshot of the website itself, just so I didn't have any tech issues here tonight. So you can see our kind of top 3 categories: the homeowner or renter, multifamily property owner or business. You can click on each of those little boxes to get, more information about your area specifically. And we have pretty much the same sections under each. The first one is how to get an energy assessment. The second one is about utility and rebates that are typically through your utility providers. There are also a lot of federal and local incentives, such as tax credits and other programs that are listed. We have financing options, which I know the Burnsville Home Loan Program is posted there, along with some other financing options. Renewable energy information, and then lastly, energy reduction tips, so just general ways to save energy and money at home. Like closing your window shades on the really hot days, right? Keep that sun out. Keeps your house quite a bit cooler, actually. I finally am doing that in my own house this summer, which has been wonderful. So the first step, since this can be kind of complex, I like to narrow down to like, what is the first thing somebody should do? And this is always what I recommend. So depending on what, if you're a resident, business, multifamily, or nonprofit, there are different energy audits that you can get in your home or property. And they all have different names and titles and things like that you can see on the right side. But essentially, they're all the same. So a trained energy professional would come into your home, business, or property. They'll walk through your whole building. They'll run a couple of tests to identify potential issues with your property and with your equipment as well. They'll look for different safety issues that you might not even know about at that time. They'll also install equipment directly on site. So think like a faucet aerator, LED light bulbs, things like that. They'll actually be going through and installing on your property. And then they'll look for different issues with like efficiency. So, sorry, my throat has been bothering me these last couple of days, as maybe many of you have experienced too with the air quality. But they will look around, and some of the common things I hear them say is like, if there's any signs of moisture, if you have ice damming issues or anything in a home or a business, they'll look at that because they'll want to address human health concerns first before, doing more insulation or something like that. One fun thing I actually learned is like a multifamily property was storing their salt near their water softener, which made a lot of sense, but their water softener was located next to their furnace. And so that salt being right there actually caused premature corrosion of the furnace. And so one of the auditors was like, you really need to be storing that elsewhere because their furnace was actually corroding prematurely. So they really look at different things and bring their energy expertise as well as kind of their lived experience to these audits in the different properties that exist. And then lastly, the best part about this is they'll give you a report. They'll tell you about what they installed, and they also make a plan for your next steps. And that includes different financing options, different rebates and incentives you could take part of, and then different websites that might help you find an installer or, something like that. And so I did this in my own home and kind of have my roadmap for the next couple of years. Typically, a home, business, or property wouldn't need to do everything all at once. I'm crossing my fingers that wouldn't be the case for you. So it helps make it a little bit more digestible. My next step is a water heater. So I don't need to hear too much about a furnace right now because I'm good.
I was just going to ask, wouldn't it be the city's building inspectors, responsibility to inspect a new construction home to make sure that the water softener is not by the furnace? Wouldn't that, if it corrodes the furnace, wouldn't that be a city inspection issue?
Yeah, and they do. This is actually the most common I see is old homes. So old homes, old multifamily properties. I believe the one that we're talking about is the 1970s or 1980s. And so it wasn't, you know, some of that's a little bit before building code existed too. And there was as much like, I don't know when our inspections team all started up here in the city. But I would think a new homes, it's quite different. This program actually, they won't really look, like they wouldn't recommend looking at a home unless it was, I believe it's 2000 or older, for residential properties. And I've kind of talked to them the same thing about multifamily properties and businesses, like how old should the building be? And they say pretty much like 2000 or 2010, but if there's any issues that the building's experiencing, then they would recommend an audit sooner. So typically it is those older stock buildings that maybe don't have as much rigor behind that inspection process, or maybe have had some storm damage that was not recognized or something like that, I think. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, and I guess when you talk about older homes, and maybe the building code was different back when that home was constructed. But I would think though, and I don't know, maybe the city staff would know better than me, but if, if I was going to have a furnace replaced or a water softener replaced, is there a permit required for that? And then at that point in time, would they say, well, you cannot put that by the furnace because of this reason?
Commissioners, I can jump in here a little bit. Yes, a permit would be required, but oftentimes work it's completed without a permit, or a permit is applied for and the inspection never occurs. So oftentimes we'll see challenges with installations and equipment that was not installed, that we actually never had a chance to inspect.
Yeah. And the one to take on, I've been working with the economic development team and all the inspectors and code enforcement groups to get this information to them, because they're really excited to be proactive and share this information with, you know, if they are out for an inspection or just doing a general walkthrough at multifamily properties. I've actually gotten to go along on a couple of those and talk to the property managers, kind of targeting, again, the older stock apartment complexes that we've had. But it's been a great staff partnership to kind of share out this information, so it's on the upfront, because we never want somebody to do something and then, you know, the inspection doesn't pass, or, you know, I hope that doesn't happen for any of us.
Bridget, a question on the residential side, even within a block radius of my home, which 70s, 80s in terms of when they were built, new homeowners coming in, just wondering in terms of like a marketing perspective, this would probably be really informative for a new homeowner coming in, purchasing an older home. Do we have like any targeted, what's at the closing table, or you know, a new resident to Burnsville, that this is something that's available to them?
Yes, I love that idea, and actually we are just working, hopefully in June we'll get our first 6-month data of the new properties purchased in Burnsville, and then as long as my budget allows, I have a small budget, I will be doing mailers to all those property owners. And I do, you know, that's actually, I wrote down some notes, like when would you typically do an audit such as this? And one of the best times is right after you buy, because then you don't have to switch out all your bulbs, and you learn all of this great information about your new home that you didn't have before. So I love that, and we're going to hopefully trial it here in June to increase our home energy. The residential program is called Home Energy Squad, so to hopefully increase those numbers at a very relevant time for people that are new to the city. Yeah, and we get an automatic discount as Burnsville residents, so you all get a discount to $35 or $50, depending on the size and type of your home. Basically, they do different pricing.
I have an additional question, since you brought up project budget. Given the volatility budget-wise at the federal level, does any of that start to touch projections or plans for you or for some of your partners who are working in other organizations with you? Does that change what the city's view might be?
Yes, so thank you for that question, and there absolutely is a lot going on federally. The wonderful thing is, in Minnesota, a lot of these things you can count on. So utility rebates won't be changing anytime soon. That's typically like the biggest amount of money you'd get for like a furnace or water heater or something like that. So those are not slated to change. That's all regulated through the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. And then there are some other additional programs that the state operates as well. So those are set. I will say at the federal level, one of the biggest programs are the federal tax credits. So you can get that now for home energy improvements annually, up to $2,000, I believe, for like insulation, things like that. There's also a solar credit, there's an electric vehicle credit, there's a whole grouping of credits just for businesses as well. And those are being discussed right now at the federal level. I can't speculate too much because it's been changing from what I've been reading. There is a lot of, I think, interest in keeping that. However, I think in Minnesota you still have lots of options for different programs, and then also different financing options as well to get some lower rates on your home loans. The city's budget, so I guess this is just talking about my like sustainability area, I do not believe is impacted at this immediate moment right now, because I'm not funded through like any grants or anything like that for my position. So
That answers it very thoroughly.
yes,
Thank you.
you. Great. Anything else? No. Okay. So on this slide, I did capture kind of what each of these audit programs are either called or where you would get them for each of the different areas. So I mentioned the residential one is called Home Energy Squad. If you live in Burnsville, or if you have Excel or CenterPoint Energy, you qualify for that. So I would highly recommend checking it out, sharing that with your friends and neighbors. Typically that visit is actually valued at $300 to $500, including all the supplies that they put in, all the time, and all the expertise that they'll bring to the table for that. The second one, the business one, that's typically developed in partnership with the business, just because they can be small, kind of mom and pop shops, to like giant warehouses and things like that. So utilities offer cost shares or discounts on those audits. And so the business would work directly with the utility provider to do that. And they have a whole team that is ready to go. It's a simple intake form, and they'll give you a call to talk about your business audit. For multifamily properties, excuse me, the sore throat won't go away. But for multifamily properties, those are actually free audits if if the multifamily property is an Excel or CenterPoint territory. And there are also a lot of bonus rebates offered for income qualified properties, so those that serve lower income tenants. And so that's a great one to go through for multifamily properties. And then nonprofits are pretty similar. That's a free program. They get even more bonus incentives since they're nonprofits. The utilities are interested in helping them out. And if you have any interest in like any one of these audits, let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can share my personal report as well if you'd be interested in what does this look like for my home or residence. I think they really lay it out nicely and hopefully give you that roadmap for next steps, so it's a little less overwhelming. I was actually just talking to a property manager, and they're like, I'm not an energy expert, and I don't want to be. So I was talking about how this can help them do that and really augment their staff too with that energy knowledge. So on the sustainability team side, I've been working on getting this out in many ways. So as I said, the website was our great kickoff to have somewhere that I can direct people when I'm talking to them. But last year, residentially, we estimate we reached about 2,223 people through different events and things like that, and outreach. So I'll see you at Party on the Plaza and Fire Muster and all of those fun things. We did a specific program focused on manufactured home parks. One of our goals is reducing energy burden, and we know that manufactured homes tend to be very costly to operate month to month. And so we've done some specific work there. In 2024, we reached 306 homes, and just like 2 weeks ago, we reached 153 homes this year. And so we're still waiting on final statistics, but these outreach events, we actually gave away free energy efficiency equipment and then information on different programs that folks can leverage should they need, financial assistance and things like that. And so this was a great partnership of not only the manufactured home park, the city, all of their utility providers, and then we also had the Red Cross out at the latest one. They provided some free checks of smoke detectors in the properties, and then they swapped out batteries or put in new ones if they weren't operational, which was actually, I heard from multiple residents. They were like, my smoke detector's been dead. So we got the Red Cross out there that day, which was great from a safety perspective. On the multifamily side, I've been working to share that out. As I mentioned, I went on to some multifamily visits, been giving those folks a call to hopefully develop that relationship with them. We also have done some mailers, and we've partnered with the multifamily building efficiency program, so they've been doing some mailers as well, and some calling. And then we also integrated this into the annual licensing trainings educational material. So every year the rental licensing program has an educational platform that property managers are required to go through, and so this information is out there as well for them. So, and my contact information. So feel free to reach out to me is what I keep telling you. Lastly, on the business side, we've done some communications. Beth put this in the newsletter a few times. I've worked with the Chamber of Commerce on their newsletter, gone to some of the events, tried to network as much as I can with the business community. And so if you have any business contacts or are a business owner yourself, you know, feel free to share or let me know if you have questions on any of these programs. And then hopefully you've seen us in some of our communications too. We've had this a few different topics in our Burnsville Bulletin, which is pictured here. We go in the Burnsville in Brief almost monthly, unless I don't have any really fun new news. So look out for some updates there as well. And then we have a lot of communications and then specific email blasts planned for the rest of this year. Specifically like social media, we're trying to get out tips and tricks on ways to save energy and save money in your home. And so we're trying kind of all the platforms that we have, you know, in person, virtually, communicating with leaders such as yourself here tonight to get out the information further to the community, because I find the best way to get this out is really word of mouth. It's actually the easiest way I've seen people sign up for one of these programs and kind of begin their energy efficiency journey. And so that is it. I have a few fun pictures for you, but feel free to reach out to me. My email's on this slide here. And kind of as I mentioned, as we transition over to the LAHA programming information, we're tying some of these programs into that funding as well. And the great thing is a lot of, for 80% area median income or less, so like kind of the low income homeowners, a lot of these programs are free. So that's really nice. It's kind of a huge benefit. They'll get this information for no cost, not even that $35 or $50. So I'll let Travis talk about that. But thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have other questions as well.
Any additional questions? No? Thank you so much, Bridget.
Thank you.
Next for us this evening is item number 4, the local affordable housing aid, commonly abbreviated to LAHA, and this is presented by Travis Bestadu, Deputy CD Director. And for our information, there are no votes required for this item.
Just learning, right? Good evening, Commissioners. The purpose of my presentation tonight is to go through our plans for spending LAHA, but as I go through the presentation, much like Bridget's, if you have questions or you want to understand something deeper, let's have the conversation here and now. So don't be afraid to interrupt me. So just providing you a little bit of background, LAHA, or Local Affordable Housing Aid, is funded through a brand new 7-county metro area sales tax, 0.25%. And all of those funds are required to be spent within the metro area by area cities. And there's a complex formula to determine, kind of based on demographics, to determine how much funding each city receives. The law came into effect halfway through last year, so we have half a year's worth of income that we're required to administer, and that's that $405,000 that we received in 2024. But ongoing, we anticipate, and it will slowly increase as sales tax revenues climb, year over year, to receive approximately $800,000 per year to support local affordable housing aid within Burnsville.
So Travis, did you say that 0.25% on the sales tax, if it's generated within the city limits of Burnsville, then it goes to Burnsville, or is it goes into this big pool, 7-county wide, and then doled out that way?
Commissioner, that's a great question. It goes into the big 7-county wide pool and then is divvied out based upon demographics. The funds that we've
I didn't think to ask that, but I'm really glad I know that.
The funds
Yeah.
that,
I would
Go ahead.
think some cities then are benefiting more than they should be benefiting. Is that would that be a correct statement?
cities receive a proportionate amount of funding based on their need that is calculated by state agencies. So,
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is that some cities might be generating more in sales tax in that 0.25%, but they're not getting the full benefit of it because it's being given to another city that might have greater need.
I believe that is correct, Commissioner, yes. Yep. So the funds that we received in 2024, we're obligated to commit those by the end of 2027, and they must be spent by 2028. So we only have 4 years to hold those dollars, program them, and get them out into the community. So it's a big commitment that cities need to take on to administer these funds. They need to be prioritized for recipients at the 80% AMI or lower level, so some of our lower income families across the city, and they can't be used to supplant any existing funding that cities have already set aside for affordable housing projects. So it must be in addition to whatever else a city is programming for their affordable housing needs. So last fall, we received our initial direction from City Council on how we might want to spend these funds. And basically the council directed us to retain and manage those funds in-house. That's somewhat unique in Dakota County. Most cities are choosing to delegate that spending to the county. They're actually giving their LAHA dollars to the county to administer through their programs. But I'm proud to say that the City Council stood up and said, we know our community the best, and we want to program those dollars ourselves for our citizens. They also instructed us to invest further in our existing programming, which I'm going to get into, and to explore a radon mitigation program. So what I'm going to discuss tonight, I think it's important for you to understand in context all of the housing programs that we have available and that we administer in Burnsville, and hopefully that will help you understand the decision-making that's happened thus far to program those LAHA dollars and help us provide us some feedback as well on how we might want to spend those dollars going forward. So I'm going to talk about our existing programs that are funded by federal HUD funds through the Community Development Block Grant Fund, the existing programs that we fund through our Economic Development Authority, and then I'm going to talk about how we anticipate spending our dollars in 2025, and then how we anticipate spending additional dollars in future years, and looking for your feedback, especially on those last 2 bullet points.
Before you move on from that, Travis,
Yep.
I would have the same question for you that I did for Bridget. With the volatility at the federal level, do you see concerns? Like, is there shifting at HUD about the community development block grants? Are those the types of things that are on the table?
Commissioner, it's my understanding that the funding that drives our housing programs through the Community Development Block Grant funds are intended to be cut through the president and I guess Congress's proposed budget.
The big beautiful
The
bill?
big beautiful bill in 2026 and going forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
how much is the current proposal like?
We in Burnsville currently receive 233. It was estimated at 233. I think we actually receive $234,000 this year to fund affordable housing projects in our city. So that funding that we receive, we'll actually receive it this summer, but it can be programmed starting July 1st of this year, will be in effect for 1 year. And then we're anticipating, depending how Congress votes on the big, beautiful bill, that funding may go away after the fiscal year 2026.
Are there any talks or concerns about whether the government will even fund those? There's been a lot of grants that have already been granted and then not delivered recently.
For the 2026 dollars, no.
Okay.
I believe those are secured and everyone is planning to spend down those dollars. And
Okay.
there hasn't been any conversation about that
Okay.
evaporating. But it is a significant change. So CDBG funds, these are dollars that come to us through the federal government, and historically we defer those dollars to the CDA, the Dakota County CDA, to administer on our behalf. Those are used for rehab loans for our lowest income families within Burnsville. So those are folks at the 0 to 80% AMI level. And like I mentioned, we're currently funded at I think it's $234,000 in fiscal year 2025. Those dollars are used for kind of mid-sized loans, $15,000 to $35,000 in size. It's a 0% interest with a 30-year term, and we typically support 4 or 5 rehab projects annually through that funding. And there is a significant waiting list to access those dollars, so they're in high demand. So that's the first batch of housing program. The second housing program that I want to talk about is our home improvement loans. Those are funded through our EDA, and those, very similar to the CDBG program, are home improvement loans, rehabilitation loans for low-income folks, but at a higher income bracket, so at the 80% to 120% AMI level. So we can provide a little bit of service and support for, generally speaking, low-income folks, but at a slightly higher income bracket, above that 80% AMI level. That is funded with $75,000 annually of EDA funds, and we do $20,000 to $50,000 loans at a 3% interest rate, and those are amortized for a 10 to 20-year term. The idea at the inception of this program was to create a revolving loan fund, and that 3% we would capture continuously, and every once in a while use a chunk of that to do one more project. And the reality is, at a $75,000 funding level, we're actually only generating about $4,000 annually in interest. So it will work, and it does work, but we're not accruing as much interest as we'd like, and we can't invest that into the community as fast as we care to. Through this funding, that $75,000 that comes through the EDA levy, we support 2 to 4 projects annually. So that's the first kind of city-owned program. The second one is our senior deferred loans. So these are for low-income senior citizens, 65 years of age or lower, at the 0 to 100% AMI level, funded at $25,000 a year. Kind of similar to our other program, a little bit lower loan amount, $10,000 to $15,000, 2%, and that's a 30-year term, and there's no payment required, a balloon payment at the end of that 30-year term, but the idea is these are senior citizens, and by the time this is due or the property goes to an heir, they would pay back that loan at that time. And through this funding, we support 2 to 4 projects annually as well. So what we've heard from council most recently, and we presented on this a few weeks back, is that they want to increase, and we, staff, support the idea of increasing flexibility by reducing the loan amount down to $5,000, because we have a lot of folks that come in and want to do a smaller repair, but our standards for these loan programs don't allow us to support a $5,000 level loan, and we're suggesting that we modify that to address some of those needs as well. And then, like
Travis.
yes, oh, sorry,
I was going to say,
Yep.
maybe you mentioned it earlier, but are these loans supposed to be covering 100% of the project, or just a portion of the project costs?
Generally speaking, I believe they cover 100% of the project. Yep. And like Bridget said, this year we're, with council direction and Bridget's support, what we'd like to do is require energy audits for any customer that wants to take advantage of these loans, that they are required to participate in an energy audit. Most of these folks are at the 0 to 80% AMI level, and like Bridget said, that audit is free and no cost to them, and there is no obligation for them to take action on the audit, but the idea is if they conduct the audit at the front end, they'll find out, hey, maybe I should put in a little bit more attic insulation, or my furnace is about to fail and is super inefficient. Maybe I should look at a new furnace as well, that they could roll that into their loan and address some of the energy needs that the property owner has. And then the other direction that we received from council is they would suggest that we continue to contract with the loan servicer that we currently use, which is it's a nonprofit, Center for Energy and Environment, who do a fabulous job. They're great to work with. They do this across the metropolitan area for a variety of municipalities.
What are people typically using the loans for? I mean, I know it's projects, but
Yeah, a lot of it is just deferred maintenance. So it might be a roof, it might be a failing and unsafe deck. They can't be used for significant enhancements to the home. You can't put an addition on or build that sauna that you want. But we have a lot of water damage. We have a lot of failing and kind of neglected HVAC systems that require a lot of attention. So it's a wide variety of kind of traditional repair and maintenance that low-income folks maybe haven't been able to invest in.
this $5,000 isn't really going to cover anything.
Correct. Sometimes it can be, and oftentimes we'll get a property maintenance complaint about fascia, rotting fascia, especially kind of in the generation of homes that were built in Burnsville in the 70s and 80s, and I own one of these too, not in Burnsville, but a 70s, 80s house. Some of that woodwork that initially went on the house 40 years ago is starting to really break down and needs some updating. So it can be something as simple as that. But with that $10,000 to $15,000 minimum, we weren't able to address those kind of property maintenance needs.
Thank you.
Yep. Now we're getting into kind of the new programming. So here is what we want to do with that $400,000 that we received in LAHA money. So the first suggestion from council and direction that we received is to make a major investment in that homeowner rehab program. So we are going to pour $300,000 into the homeowner rehab program. So it would be very similar to the existing EDA program that I just went through, that first city-sponsored program, except we're required to prioritize folks at the 0 to 80% AMI level. We believe, in coordination and communication with our loan servicing partner, that there is adequate demand out there that will consume that $300,000 readily. And now that we reduce that loan amount to $5,000, we can get a lot more of these out the door as well. But the same thing, it would be at a 3% amortized rate, 10 to 20 year term. So at that $300,000 level, plus the 75 we're already investing in a similar program, now we have enough capital to create a revolving loan fund. And we'll be able to probably do an extra project a year just based on the interest that we receive alone. Sorry, my voice too, Bridget. I think it's the smoke. So with that $300,000 new investment on top of the 75, we're anticipating 6 to 12 additional projects, can't stand it, annually. Thank you. I will take you up on it. And then similarly, we're suggesting that we invest $100,000 on top of the 25 that we already invest in the senior deferred program. Very similar terms to what I already discussed, focused and prioritized for that 0 to 80% AMI level, excuse me. With that funding, we feel like we can support 5 to 10 additional projects annually. So through this funding, we feel like we can really move the needle in terms of the rehab projects that we can support throughout the community. As I mentioned at the beginning, the council also directed us last fall to explore.
Can we back up? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm curious how many of these senior deferred loans have occurred so far, and about how long we've been running the program, a reminder.
I believe we began the program in 2022, Beth?
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Feels right.
Yeah, and I want to say it's 2 to 3 senior deferred annually, approximately.
Okay.
Yep, the program is currently closed because the contract we have with our administrator has since expired, but we wanted to get direction from the council and the EDC before we renewed that. And actually, Beth and I are meeting with the contractor tomorrow to talk about renewing that contract.
So in the almost 3 years since the program started, and maybe having touched, 6 to 9 senior homeowners, have any of them sold their property in that time? Did any of them use this to make the changes to sell their property and thus trigger a payback, or that's all money that's out?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I suspect that has not occurred. I think Beth might have an update.
That has not occurred. So the intent of the senior deferred loan is for folks to make the investment or improvements in their home while they're still living there. And then upon sale or when it's no longer their primary residence, then that balance would be due. And just for a point of clarity, in the amount of time that we've had these loans, all of the funds have been utilized within 3 to 6 months. And so we've never had the funds available for a full calendar year. They're always utilized, and then we have to turn it off. And so that kind of speaks to the demand that Travis was talking about.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's some sort of a program that's slightly different that can be used for those people who want to make some changes to make their home more appealing on the market to turn over, because we are looking at a lot of situations where people just stay because it's a lot easier to just stay in the place that's already there. But we certainly want to be able to be turning over new homes to new families as well.
Commissioner, these programs can be used to make somewhat cosmetic repairs, like I talked about, fascia that's been damaged or is in poor repair, or put a new roof on a property. And the interest rates, in current times are relatively low. That loan would just need to be repaid upon sale.
Right. Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anything anybody else does that's more targeted for people who are getting ready to sell and they're just wanting to sell, just to keep a good product moving through the city.
I'm not aware of any specific programming that is intended to kind of support the real estate turnover.
So now, this is a fairly new program, you said since 2022, but has there been any people that have defaulted on their loans?
Commissioner, I don't believe that we've had a single report of a default. In fact, I mean, the only thing I can report on for the homeowner repair side is that we've had a couple paybacks where properties have sold and we've had new ownership take over, but no, we haven't had any defaults. And I will say CEE is really good at vetting, and I'm not exactly sure what their process is, except that I know it's pretty robust and utilized widely across the metro, and they're very good at vetting applicants.
Sorry, CE?
CEE, Center for Energy Environment.
Okay.
That's the loan servicer that we hire to administer this program for us.
The one with the contract that's,
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
Travis, and I assume that any bidding, we would have some type of say, multiple bids, lowest bid, higher bidder. Do we have any say in terms of what contractor actually completes the work?
In terms of selecting the contractor?
Yes, or is that just the homeowner?
Oh, the homeowner that actually does the work itself.
Yes.
I think that's vetted through CEE, and they work with them to provide contractor names and folks that they can work with when they pick a contractor to repair that fascia or put in a furnace.
Okay, so they're assisting the homeowner in selecting, but it's really their choice in terms of who they go with.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to use a specific company or anything, but I think they kind of facilitate the relationship with the contractors to get multiple bids in. And that's a good question. I'm not sure what the requirements are for how they select their contractor to do the actual work, if you have to have 3 bids and it's the lowest bid, or how exactly that works, but it's a good question.
One thing to add on that, CEE does facilitate a staff or a contractor of their own to go out and ensure that the project has been completed, to just kind of verify proper use of the funds. And so that's kind of another layer of services that CEE provides.
Correct. And all permits are pulled and inspected and permits are closed out, which we in building safety appreciate. So one of the things that we were asked from council last fall was to explore a radon mitigation program, knowing that radon is a significant challenge in Burnsville. And what we learned kind of through that process is the administrative expenses of creating our own radon mitigation program and then administering loans to study radon within a home and then put in a mitigation system basically mirror or are near the same amount as the project costs themselves. So to conduct a study, to take samples of radon within a home is about $500, and putting in a system can be $1,000 to $1,500, somewhere in that range. And the administrative costs and the administrative burden of administering a loan for that low of an amount is kind of administratively burdensome and probably not a great use of our resources. And we talked to our current loan servicer, we talked to the county if they would be interested in creating a program for us to support that sort of initiative, and the answer unfortunately was no. However, with reducing our dollar amount to $5,000, now if a homeowner wanted to do that fascia repair for $3,000 and do a mitigation study and a radon mitigation study and mitigation project, they could probably trigger that $5,000 amount and could take on that radon mitigation program. So one of the efforts, what we'd like to do through this next contract is to encourage and develop our own marketing to support and let applicants know that radon mitigation is something that they could look at as something they roll into one of their rehab loans. So that's the CDBG programming, that's the city rehab program, the senior deferred program, and some of the tweaks that we plan to make this go round. Now, and the funding that we may use that first tranche of LAHA dollars for, $300,000 for home rehab, $100,000 for senior deferred loans. Now we're talking about programming that we are envisioning for 2026 and possibly beyond. So the first program that we've identified is something that we're calling Burnsville Home Start. This would be this is a down payment assistance loan program that would be prioritized for Burnsville renters. So if you're a Burnsville resident that's lived here for a number of years and you want to put roots down in Burnsville, we would support, and you're a low-income family, we would support 50% first-time home buyer down payment capped at up to $40,000. So 50% of their down payment. So a significant down payment assistance program, which are offered elsewhere throughout the metro, but there isn't a similar program offered for actually anyone in Dakota County, but including Burnsville residents.
I'm sorry, is that 40,000 that's 40,000 that that Burnsville Home Start would provide, indicating an $80,000 down, or at the 40,000 and you guys would do 20? It's 40. You guys are in for 40.
The cap would be 40, and they would be responsible for the other 40. So it would be,
Yep.
it would be a 50%, essentially a match.
Right.
Right.
So what they're okay.
Yeah. But up to a $40,000
Yep.
down payment.
Travis, could the home buyer match that with other programs, or they could just match it with whatever funding they may be available?
Commissioner, we would just provide that initial 50% amount, and however else the home buyer can find that down payment support through other programs or other resources, as long as their bank would support it and are willing to underwrite that loan,
Right.
then they would be good to go. And there are many communities throughout the metro, not very many that go up to 40,000, some go to 50, that have a very similar program that are wildly successful. So this kind of speaks a little bit to the information that was generated in the Housing and Commercial Needs Assessment, which demonstrates that we have a whole bunch of renters that really want to make the transition to home ownership, but really need a little bit of a boost to kind of make that leap. And the idea of offering it to Burnsville families is we move that individual out of a Burnsville rental property into a home, and now we have a new space for a new family to come into our community. So that's the first idea. The second idea is a little bit more creative and very specific, or somewhat specific to Burnsville, and we're calling it productive properties. And the idea here is that we would work with a nonprofit partner like Habitat for Humanity, and we would acquire and rehab and reoccupy vacant single-family homes, existing single-family homes that we have in Burnsville right now. Unfortunately, we have about 7 or 8 of these vacant single-family homes that are in really poor condition, that have been vacant for a number of years and really are a blighting impact on the neighborhood. And for whatever reason, and in some cases we know, some cases we don't, those properties remain vacant and continue to be kind of drawing down that neighborhood over time. So, and this would be a voluntary program, so we would work with a nonprofit partner to reach out to those property owners and say, hey, would you be interested in selling us this property for such and such amount? We would invest a portion of our LAHA dollars to rehab that property and then sell it back to a family at the 0 to 80% AMI level to get that property productive again and a family reoccupying it. What is otherwise a decent housing unit in our city that's basically just kind of rotting where it stands. So we would have to go through a solicitation process to find a vendor, and I know there are vendors out in the community that do this, and then sell it for our acquisition costs. And we would require that family to hold that property for a set period of time, perhaps 30 years, through their deed. So that's the second idea that the council has asked us to explore for future funding. And then the third is emergency housing vouchers. So there are situations, unfortunately, in Burnsville through emergency response activities by police, fire, by neighborhood services, where unfortunately we need to vacate a property for safety reasons. And there are times where a family doesn't have any place to go. And what we would do here is provide a housing voucher administered through staff for up to a 2-week stay at a local hotel. We would partner with one of our local hotels to support that family while they can get back on their feet for a brief period of time and reoccupy that property. Oftentimes, in neighborhood services, we need to vacate a property because of a hoarding situation or something like that can be readily corrected, within a week's worth of time and some focused effort, and we can get that person back in that property and have them in a safe place to stay. And that would be available to police, fire, and neighborhood services staff. So that brings me to kind of our policy question is, does the EDC have other thoughts, recommendations, concerns that we should consider before we kind of finalize this first tranche of LAHA funding specific to the deferred loan program and the senior deferred loan program? And or are there other ideas that we should explore in the next 3 to 6 months and how we might want to spend that $800,000 annually? And I'll also just throw in that I intend for this to be an iterative conversation. This is the first time all of us cities are getting these dollars, and we're learning how to administer them. And these are kind of what we've identified through that housing and commercial needs assessment and working with the council and staff on how we could best spend the dollars today. That almost certainly will change and evolve over time as we kind of learn more about the funding source, what is working, what isn't. I plan to come back to you all next year and say, here's how we spent those dollars. We're thinking we need to tweak it here and we should invest more here or abandon this program. But we're trying to kind of come up with at least a first pass on how we might want to administer those dollars. So in terms of next steps, we do need to update our it says homework policy here. That is our home loan. Those are our 2 home loans. So we need to update that policy, and that needs to go before the EDA on June 17th. We need to re-up that contract with our Center for Energy and Environment partner on June 17th as well. And then we'll put some meat on the bones of the Home Start productive properties and emergency vouchers over the next 3 to 6 months. And with that, I can take any thoughts or questions or feedback. I know it's kind of a lot, kind of fast, but
I think it's a great start.
Yeah.
thank
I
you.
agree.
What I like about it is that it attempts to touch people at a lot of different levels and different needs. So it's not going all in on exactly one style of need or demand. It's really spread wide to reflect the different functions for different populations in the city. Interestingly, I was at the city council work session where this was discussed, and the topic that seemed to have the least support by city council members was the one of possibly acquiring a currently vacant home and then rehabbing it to ready it for sale. But I think, whether that's a good idea or not, I'm not sure. But what I do note about that is that it touches the most people. Like, of those loans, if you're really only looking at 6 homeowners in a year, if you get one home that's really tearing down the neighborhood's appeal, you're probably going to touch about a dozen homeowners and 20, 30 Burnsville residents who will be very excited to see that change. And so, it seems to be the most reaching outside the comfort zone, but it also, one act has the opportunity to impact the most people's comfort and satisfaction and community engagement in life.
Commissioner, we've talked about that program a lot. It's the hardest one we're
Well, and the
exploring here, but
distinct,
it's very Burnsville specific because we do have beautiful neighborhoods that are in generally great condition, and we just have a few of
with
these.
a one-off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
few of these properties that are not turning over, and this could be kind of the spark that turns them over. I would also just challenge you in that we're only touching 6 families at the affordable level through that program.
Right.
And the goal is to to touch as many families as we can that are at the lower income level. So I would just,
That's a really excellent point.
yeah, so
Noted.
the down payment assistance program, I think, is actually where we can touch the most people and the most families, but affordable families
Right.
at the lower AMI level. But I had never thought about how, the productive properties would really impact a whole bunch of people that are driving through that neighborhood kind of on a daily basis. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
I would agree that I think you guys are definitely on the right track, and I really like the productive properties. I love the Home Start. I think the productive properties is on the right track. And that productive properties also gives homeowners who would never probably qualify for any of your other programs visibility into what you're doing with the money, which could also be, quite frankly, a good PR move.
Yeah.
This might seem like a little bit of a tangent, but in terms of neighborhoods and what they look like, I don't think it falls here, but has anybody considered the cost of removing a tree is excessive? Yeah. And I'm guessing that everybody at this table probably has at least one tree, or a neighbor has a tree that needs to come down because of the ash. So does that fall into any of this in terms of beautification or just even
That's a
prevention
safety.
from having them
Yeah.
fall over in 5 years? I don't know. It might be, I don't know if that's the thing. I don't know where that falls, but I do feel like I can assure you that there's going to be neighborhoods where those trees are going to be taken care of, and there's going to be
drought.
other trees or other neighborhoods where it's just not possible. So how do we manage that at the city?
Commissioner, that's a good question. I have one of those trees in
Yeah,
my
my
right
neighbor has
now
one of
that
those
my
trees,
wife.
and it's gonna land on my roof.
Yeah,
you
my
know?
wife and I talk about it all the time. We're like, we really got to take that down. I don't believe that we could use any of these programs for tree
Yeah.
removal. And it's something that we hadn't necessarily considered. I certainly could get clarification from our service provider if we could. Maybe we could use the EDA funded program for tree removal, but I'm not sure that.
Well, and again, from a long-term perspective, certainly the investment is much better in the actual physical property.
Yeah.
I absolutely understand that, but it's also, we are running a risk of, the property's gonna get destroyed if we don't take the tree down and it falls over on it, so it's that fine balancing act,
Correct,
so.
correct. And I don't think we've kind of tackled that. And we're kind of, fortunately, we're a little bit early in the emerald
Yeah.
ash borer.
Yep,
And the tree in front of my house is not a danger at this point, but it looks terrible. But at some point, we'll probably have to
Yeah.
consider that. And like I said, and that's, it's something we should explore perhaps for the next round of LAHA, and that next iteration. And that's the goal here, is to kind of, and I appreciate that the state has come up with a tool that they're giving to the cities to meet those kind of specific needs that we have. So that's something that we could explore in kind of the next round.
Great. Thank you so much, Travis.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is a time for updates. The one that I'm aware of is that the next EDC meeting is scheduled for September 10th, 2025. That does mark the fact that this one got bumped up a month, and so the one that would have been in July is not being held. So for everybody's calendar and understanding. Any other updates from staff?
No.
No? All right. Well, at this time, I would like to request a motion for adjournment.
I will make that motion to adjourn today's Economic Development Commission meeting.
Any seconds?
I will second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting at 7:36 p.m. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Then that motion passes and the meeting is complete. Thank you.